Hi guys, my name is Taylor Hunt. I'm an Ashtanga yoga practitioner and teacher. We're here today to talk about adjustments. Adjustments are one of the critical components to the Ashtanga method or even the Mysore Style. And we're going to get into those in just a second, but first we're going to cover some of the Ashtanga basics. The first basic that I would like to cover is the breath. And so the breath is breath with sound, closely related to Ujjayi breathing, but we're not looking for a formal yoga practice. We actually just want a slight sound in the breath. So that's the first, really the pillar of Ashtanga yoga. And then the second one that we're focusing on today is the looking point. So the looking point, or the drishti like we like to call it, is where you put your eyes. And so part of the reason why we put our eyes in a certain spot is because most of the time during our society, we are a little scattered. And so the drishti is where your eyes actually look. In each posture, there's a designated spot where your eyes are supposed to look. So when you're in the Mysore room and you're practicing, one of the things that your teacher will tell you is where to put your eyes. So like anytime that you do a forward fold, it's the big toes. Anytime your hands are above your head, it's the thumbs. The making of the Trikonasana method is the breath with the asana and then also the drishti like we just covered. So the next one that we'll talk about is the asana. And so when you're focused on the asana, you're also going inside, which is an important element of a yoga practice as well. Part of the understanding of the asana is that we understand how our body is actually moving into the posture. So as you're doing the postures, we're supposed to be looking at really form, like which way is your body moving? And this fits perfectly with our topic today of adjustments. One of the other things that we need to talk about today is the importance of having a teacher. This is obviously an instructional video, and I think it goes without saying that you really need people in order to figure out how to do this stuff. So this is great fundamentals, and this is a great way to master this technique, but you will need a teacher to guide you, because one of the best ways of knowing how to assist someone is actually being assisted yourself. And so having a teacher is one of the most critical components to adjusting people. Before we begin, the last topic that I would like to talk about is actually the Mysore Style. And so the Mysore Style is critical for how we teach new people the Ashtanga yoga method. One of the things that I think is the most important is that it is individualized teaching. A lot of time it's understood that the Mysore method is actually for advanced people, and that is far from the case. Mysore Style is actually for anyone who is willing to learn on an individual setting. The first thing that we learn when we come into a Mysore setting is a sun salutation, and it's done one-on-one with the teacher. And so basically the teacher will show you how to do it, and then most of the time the next step is that they will teach you how to do it, and then the following thing is that they actually let you do it on their own. Because the other basis of the Mysore method is that we're trying to build individuals. And so when we're building individual practitioners, having you do it on your own is where you learn the most. And so let's take a look at Surya Namaskara A, or Sun Salutation A. I just want to give simple and clear instruction when it comes to this. So let's do this. So inhale, sweep your hands up, palms together. And then exhale, hands to the floor. Yeah, keep your legs straight as much as possible. Inhale, look up, just look in front of you just slightly. And then exhale, you're stepping your feet back into push-up position and lowering down. Flip your feet to the tops of your feet and come to upward dog. Yeah, look up. And then exhale, going back to downward dog. And we'll just do 5 breaths here. 2 deep breaths. 3, 4, and 5. Look forward, look in between your hands, and then just step your feet up. Yeah, we'll keep it really simple. And then exhale, fold forward one more time. And then inhale, hands above the head, palms together. And then exhale, back to Samastitihi, or equal standing position with your hands by your sides. After you master the Sun Salutation A's in a Mysore class, the next thing that you learn is Salutation B's. And this can be done over a week, or it could be done over a 2-day period, or it could even be done over a month. Because we're basically trying to give a difficult yoga practice and kind of ease you into it. So this one is more positions, but let's just keep it simple also. So bend your knees, sweep your hands up, same thing as what we did before. And then exhale, hands to the floor, straighten your legs. Inhale, look up, and then exhale, going back to push-up position again and lower down. Inhale, upward dog, tops of your feet, yeah, arch your back. Exhale, going back to downward dog. The right foot comes up into warrior position, ground the back foot, hands above the head, inhale, and then exhale, right back down into push-up position and lower down. Yeah, inhale, upward dog, and then exhale, back to downward dog. Now the left foot is going to come forward into warrior. Inhale, sweep your hands up. And then exhale, going back down to the floor, lower down. Inhale, yeah, use the breath, and then exhale, back to downward dog. And we'll take 5 breaths here too. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Step the feet up in between your hands again. Exhale, fold forward. Bend your knees, sweep your hands up, so we finish the same way we started, palms together, and then exhale, hands next to your side, straight legs. Very good. So that's Surya Namaskara A and B. As we get further along, after we learn Salutation Bees and get better at it, the next thing that we learn is the standing postures. And so also we break these down. So maybe the first time when you learn Sun Salutation A's and B's on the first day, the second day, maybe you learn just the standing. And maybe it's only the first 3 groups of postures. Also, another thing that we need to understand is that there is no finish line. You're not trying to rush through the postures. It would be better to come every single day of the week and do a small, maybe 20-minute practice instead of doing a 2-hour practice that you're unable to maintain for that amount of days. I think that's critical for learning Ashtanga Yoga as well. So with all of that in mind, now's the time that we start focusing on adjustments. Let's take a look at downward dog. So with this down dog adjustment, we're just going to keep it simple also. All right, so first thing I'm going to have him do is just widen his hands a little bit. So I want his index finger as wide as his shoulders. Very good. And then I'm also going to take his humerus bone and I'm going to externally rotate to spread the scapulas around his back so he activates the side body. And then I'm going to transfer one hand right to his lower back and ground his feet. So not necessarily getting the heels down. Maybe that's not so important as keeping them grounded, but just giving them a little bit of pressure down through the heels so that the pose feels stable. The next thing that I want to do is add a little bit of flexion into his spine by pulling in his ribs, just ever so slightly. And this will activate the pose and also activate his core. Let's take a look at Paragustasana. The first thing that I'm going to have you do is place the right hand on the sacrum, and really the pressure is going to be going downward. So I'm going to really help him ground his feet. The next thing is I'm going to take my leg and put it on his leg just for a contact point to make him feel more secure. And then go ahead and tuck your chin, Andy, and go ahead and get in the full posture. And then my left leg is actually going to come around his back. So another contact point is my leg is pushing against his shoulder blade. And then I'm going to take my left hand, and as I'm pressing down, my legs are going to be squeezing in this way, and my hand is actually going to be squeezing him towards the front of his thighs. So we can just watch him deepen this a little bit. But I'm still pressing down into his feet to keep him grounded. Deep breaths, 4 and 5. And then I'm not going to remove my hand from his sacrum. I'm going to have him look up. I'm going to scooch back a little bit. And then let's come all the way up. The next one we'll look at is Utita Trikonasana. So go down and grab your big toe, Andy. And I think the critical element of adjustments is always keeping people grounded, keeping them safe, but also like making sure that they feel secure when you're giving them the adjustment. So here's what I'm going to do. The first contact point is my thigh right against his hip. And then I'm going to use my right hand as a grounding hand, and it's actually going to be sending him down into the back side of his foot. So there's some pressure there. And then I'm just going to take this shoulder here, and I'm just going to pull it towards me. So just pull him just a little bit. And he should feel really stable. The contact point is in the hip, and then I'm pressing down through the back foot, and he should feel really secure as he's doing this. Just take some deep breaths. Good. And then I'm going to help him up just so he doesn't fall. And that's a simple adjustment for Utita Trikonasana. So let's take a look at Utita Trikonasana B. The first thing I want to do is look at his base, and I want him to bring his foot just a little bit closer to the outside of his mat. And so if you drew a line down, you would want the heels in line, or you would want the front foot to be a little bit wider than the back foot. All right, so let's get into the posture. Bring your left hand down and across, and then really ground that hand. Good. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get a couple contact points. The first one is my big toe is going to be on his big toe, just to keep him a little bit secure. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my right leg and I'm going to bring it to his back leg. The next thing is the grounded hand is going to go into the right hip, and it's kind of pressing down but also back to keep this level but also keep it squared. So I'm going to be pressing down. My left leg, because my big toe is on his foot, my left leg is going to be pressing into his shoulder blade as I just slightly twist him. So back and down with the grounded hand, and then this left hand is twisting him a little bit. And I can use my knee a little bit to help facilitate that a little bit, just to deepen the twist. And then we'll say that's 5, and then I'm going to help him up. And that's Utita Trikonasana B. Let's take a look at Paragustasana C. So Andy, spread your hands, and then all I want you to do is interlace your fingers behind your back, and I want you to keep the palms spread. It's a little bit easier that way. And then go ahead and fold forward. Yeah, and then tuck your chin, just drop your head. Good. So the first one, easiest adjustment, is that we're just going to take the right hand and press the sacrum down so that there's some support there. And then one of the contact points is that our legs are touching each other. And then I'm just going to give his shoulders and his hands just a little bit of a push closer to the ground. But I'm keeping him grounded as he's doing it, keeping the pressure of this backhand going down. So this is really maybe the easiest, the safest adjustment that you can give for anyone. Let's take a look at another one. So let's inhale up. And let's just go back down, Andy. Just exhale back down, drop your chin again. On this one, it's a little bit deeper, all right? So I'm actually going to step up and I'm going to put my leg right in between his torso and this front of his thigh. And then I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to ground either my fingers or even maybe the full hand. And once I ground my hand, I'm actually going to bend the elbow so that I send him closer to his legs and close that gap between the front of the thighs and the chest. And then I'm going to use the left hand to help him get a little bit deeper into the posture and hands closer to the floor. And let's inhale back up, and I'm going to help him. So that's an adjustment that the person has to be a little bit more open in order to give. Thanks, Andy. So with Dawn on this adjustment, we'll be able to give her a little bit more. So interlace your fingers, and then just go ahead and exhale down. And I'm just going to step in. My hand's going to support here for just a second, and then I'm going to put my left hand down right behind her head. And since she can get her hands all the way down to the ground, this is pretty easy. You just bend the elbow, and you send her through her legs just slightly as you're really grounding the front of her hand. So yeah, she's pretty deep into this. And let's help her up here. Inhale up. Exhale. Nicely done, Don. The next one we'll look at is Utita Paragustasana. With the Utita Paragustasana adjustment that I'm going to show you, it's all about keeping them stable. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, as Andy grabs his left big toe here, I'm going to keep my hand on his shoulder, and then I'm going to come over here, and I'm just going to help support his heel. And then once we're doing this, we're going to fold him forward slightly, and we're just going to do a couple breaths. 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale up, and then we're going out to the side. And there's a couple different ways to do this. You can see my hand is still on his left shoulder, or right shoulder, excuse me, and I'm still supporting his heel. And I've definitely taken the front side here, but there is still an option of coming out to the side or even taking the back side. I could help support him here. And then also you can see where he needs to just kind of slouch down a little bit with his hip and rotate it. Okay, and this is just obviously another way to do it. And let's bring him back inside. I'm going to help him ground and then fold forward again. Good. All right, and then both hands to the hips. And this is critical to keep them balanced. Most of the people fall during this time. I'm just going to keep the pressure going down. I could put it on the shoulder. One of the other options is I could go to his hand, maybe squeeze his hand a little bit and help him ground that way as well. But the energy and the pressure is going down so that he stays stable in this standing leg. And now let's get started with the primary series. The first pose that we'll look at is Pashimotanasana. Andy, grab your big toes here. Good. There's plenty of different ways to do this, but one of the ways I'm going to show here is I'm just going to come down and I'm actually going to take my knees and squeeze his hips. And then let's go ahead and fold forward. And I'm just going to stay like this and just give him a little bit of push. I'm like right in the middle of his back and giving him a push forward. It's also a possibility that I could lay forward and grab his feet as well, which also feels nice. My knees are squeezing his hips still and pulling his feet back. Good. And so I could come back up here. The only other thing that I'd say is sometimes you can take the ribs and help them really get some length into their spine so they're not rounding back here, but keeping them grounded by really pulling the hips or the knees together and really keeping them grounded here. Let's take a look at Purvottanasana. So with Purvottanasana, I think the most important adjustment is how the shoulders roll. All right, so we're going to help Dawn get into this. She's going to lift her hips, but the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set her shoulders correctly. So you're not looking for external rotation, which that means that she would be bringing her shoulder blades together. You're actually looking for slight internal rotation to keep the neck soft. All right, so lift your hips, Dawn, and I'm going to help you roll. So let's bring your head back up. And we're just rolling just a slight bit and then dropping your head down. And that little bit of space that we just gave the neck feels much better. You could transfer the hand down to the hips and just help her get up just a little bit. And deep breaths. 4 and 5. Thank you. Good. The next one we'll look at is Ardha Baddha Padma Pashimotanasana. With this adjustment of Ardha Baddha Padmatanasana, what we're going to do with Andy is give him a false bind. So let's get him into the posture. Go ahead and bend your left leg and put the leg over top like you're getting into half lotus. And I'm going to have him reach behind his back. We're going to pretend like his foot is really far away from him. And I'm going to do two things. One is I'm going to grab his big toe and then grab my hand or grab my thumb. And I could give the adjustment just like this because the bind seems to be far away for a lot of people. So this would be a way that we could get a little bit deeper. Take this hand, going down. If he was much further away, I could actually take his hand and put it on my shin and maybe prop the knee up just a bit and give him a little push down that way as well. So that the pressure of the knee would be coming up towards his shoulder, and then the pressure of my right hand is sending him towards his folded leg. There you go. And then inhale up. And that's a safe adjustment to give to anyone. The next grouping of postures that we'll focus on are called the Marichasanas. We'll look at A, C, and D. Let's take a look at a Marichasana A adjustment. So Dawn, bend your right leg. Good. And then I'm going to take her arm and I'm going to have her reach forward almost like she's diving. Yeah, diving forward and then thumb down and wrap around the leg. And I'm going to pin this arm right around the leg. That will help her stay grounded. And then the other hand reaches behind and she's taking the wrist. Very good. So as she's doing this, I'm continually pulling back her elbow. And now, since she's into the posture, I can help her go forward a bit. So my other hand is helping her going right over the folded leg. I could also maybe get a little bit closer and squeeze her hips just to help her stay a little bit more grounded in her posture. With Andy, we're going to work on the Marichasana A version that is best for him. And so let's give him an adjustment that fits his body. So bend your right leg, ground that foot, good. And then we're going to guide him to bring his hand in and then reach around and bind as deep as he can. So same thing as what I was doing with Dawn. He's just a little bit, he got a different body shape and a little bit tighter. And then I'm going to help him down. And with my left leg, I'm going to actually guide his shoulder a bit. And you can see that I'm actually really pulling strongly as I press him down towards the straight leg. 2, 3, 4, and 5. And come on up, Andy. And so just a little bit stronger of an adjustment for Andy because he's just a little bit tighter in his body. Dawn's going to show us how to do Chasana C, and the adjustment that I'm going to give is going to help her deepen her posture. All right? So reach around, bind your hands. We're going to get her a little bit tighter so that she's at least taking her wrist. All right? And then my right hand is actually going to help her ground down. And then as I do this, I'm going to peel back her shoulder. And I'm going to have her sit up tall. There you go. I could also put like maybe my knee into her back or maybe the side of my leg into her back just to help her keep this side body long. Very good, Don. So with this adjustment of Chasana C, I'm actually going to sit down and then go ahead and bend your left leg. And I'm going to drape my left leg over top of his leg, and I'm going to help guide him into a little bit wider of a stance here. And then the next thing I want you to do, Andy, is grab my shoulder. So this is a pretty effective way to help people deepen their experience with C, Chasana C. And I'm actually going to lean back just to reduce the space that's right here. And once I lean back, you can see it kind of closed the gap here. And I'm going to ground his shoulder around his leg, and then I'm going to guide him around and help him bind as deep as I can. So if I can keep the pressure on the back of his elbow here, he'll be really grounded and he'll feel pretty secure in this posture. So we can stay here. Yeah, get a good bind there. And just a few breaths. And you can see where this shoulder's dropped a bit, so I'm going to pull him just a little bit towards me. But I'm still pressing down on this grounded hand here. 2, 3. I can even twist his shoulder just a bit. So I'm pulling his shoulder this way instead of propping him a little bit more forward. All right? And then let's come on out of this. So that's an effective way to help someone who's a little bit tighter get into this posture. With this Chasana D adjustment, I'm just going to help her just like I did with C. So why don't you go ahead and get into it. Reaching around. And I'm going to help her stay grounded in this left arm. And then I'm going to help her deepen her bind a bit. And then you can see where there's plenty of space here to give her a little bit of adjustment. And then just sit up. There you go. So this left hand is pulling her shoulder back as I'm still grounding her with the wrapping hand. All right? And really deepening her twist here. So with this Chasana D adjustment, we're going to let Andy put his leg under. So go ahead and put that right leg under. And then we're going to have you bend that. Good. And I'm going to do the exact same thing as what I did in C, just kind of put my leg over top of his. I'm going to take his knee, bring it towards the midline as he reaches around. And I'm just going to lean back. I'm supporting him here to close this gap. The more gap there is, the harder this pose becomes. And then we're just going to get him around his knee. So go ahead and let go of my arm. And then get him around. And I'm going to be pressing downward here and help him ground and get the bind as deeply as possible. I can stay here. I could go here just like we did in C. This looks fine for me. And this position of the leg down here is perfect for someone who might have some aggravation in their knee. The next two postures that we'll look at are Quartermasana and Suptochromasana. The first thing I'm going to do is help Dawn get a little bit deeper of a forward fold by pressing her middle back. Good. Yeah, so you're just giving slight pressure forward. All right, and then let's do Suptochromasana. So I'm going to help her bind her hands. So she reaches back, I'm taking her elbows and pulling her hands up just a little bit closer together so she gets a deeper bind. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is bring her feet in. So I'm going to wiggle them in, and then the next thing is I'm going to get her calves out of the way. So once I get her calves out of the way, there'll be space to actually put them behind her head or maybe even above her head. And I'm going to get up just a little bit, and I'm going to prop her up with my legs. Once I prop her, I'm going to fix the calves again, and I'm just going to press her down and then help her cross her feet just a bit. I'm grounding my hands and sending her head towards the floor. So I'm using my legs as kind of the thing that's protecting her feet from just coming apart, but also maybe as a little bit of a prop as well. So this is another way to adjust Quartermasana and Suptochromasana. We'll do these together, all right? So first thing is I'm going to press him downward. Just a couple breaths here. 4, 5, and then we'll help him bind. And we're taking his elbows back, and helping him bind. And then I'm going to come over at the front. And we're going to do a front side adjustment where Dawn, we did the back side adjustment. So the first leg, and then the second leg, I'm going to cross over. And then point your feet, Andy. There you go. And then the left hand, I'm going to support this bottom foot. And then press his middle back down, bringing it closer to the head. Just some deep breaths here. 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm going to help him up. Nice job, Andy. And now we start the second series. The first posture of the second series is called Pashasana. Let's take a look at it. So Pashasana is the first pose of the intermediate series. It's difficult for a lot of people because they don't feel stable or grounded. So the first thing that we're going to do with this adjustment is we're actually going to latch around Dawn's hips here to create some stability. So some people have to do this on their tippy toes, and Dawn's pretty good at this, but I'm still going to do the adjustment like this so she's completely grounded while we do it. The first thing that we want to do is take her left arm and reach it across as I support her, and I'm pressing kind of like this way as I squeeze her hips. And we're going across, and then she's turning the thumb up. And then my right hand actually goes right on the back of her arm, right above her elbow. And then she's going to reach behind with her other arm, and I'm just going to help her deepen her bind here. One of the things that I think is nice is that if you keep the hand on the back of the arm, you can also deepen the posture by taking the other shoulder and pulling it back, which creates a nice stability. The next thing that you can do if they're feeling really stable in it is you can unlock around their hips. And that's Pashasana. The next posture we'll look at is Baikasana. Okay, let's get into this pose, Dawn. So reach back and grab the inside of your foot, and then grab the other one. And on this posture, we're actually going to help her ground a little bit by squeezing again, squeezing her legs. So we're deepening the stretch on the front of the thigh. And then we're also going to help her deepen the back bend by just pulling her up a little bit. But I'm still grounding her this way as I'm pressing her in. And then I'm going to switch my arms around, and I'm going to take her elbows on my elbows, and I'm going to let the feet come down a bit. So she should feel pretty good as we're really deepening the back bend, but also keeping her grounded. Nice job, Dawn. The next one we'll look at is Salutation Vadrasana. Salutation Vadrasana is our next one, and it is very difficult just because of the amount of leg activation that it needs. So I'm going to do this on the front side, and this is typically an adjustment that you would give to someone who's just learning this. All right, so the first thing, Dawn, I want you to do is reach back and grab like your ankle right above. And I'm going to grab her hips, and then I'm going to guide her down. So we're just going to go all the way down to the top crown of the head. 2, 3, 4. Yeah, stay grounded in your hands. And then thumbs down, really ground your hands. There you go. And then inhale up. So that's a simple adjustment on just helping support the person in the learning process. This is an adjustment that you would give to someone who's a little bit closer to the posture. So Dawn, I want you to go back. Same thing as what we did before. Catch your Achilles, right above your ankle. And then just go down to my hands. So the first step that you can do is you can help them just stay right there. So she's got a lot of weight in my hands. And I'm going to keep her right here, but soften your head on my hands. There you go. And then I'm going to help her back up this way. So as she gets better with it, I can start lowering my hands. And this doesn't have to happen over one class. Maybe this happens over a month's time or maybe a week's time. So let's do it one more time, but let's go all the way down to the ground. I'll show them that way. So bring your hands to your Achilles. and then crown of the head into my hands, and I'm just going to help her lower down. So the lighter her head is on my hands, the closer she is to actually getting this. 2, 3, and then thumbs down, roll your arms internally, good, and then inhale up. And I just gave her a little push up, and that's all she really needed. The next pose that we'll look at is Kapadasana. Kapadasana is a really deep back bend. So on this adjustment, I'm going to actually really support her. I'm going to kind of crouch down a bit. And the first thing I want you to do, Dawn, is keep your hips forward. And then I want to arch your back and then look at the mat. And then we're going to reach your hands back. And my hands are right in the small of her back, right above her sacrum. And then I'm just going to take her hands. I'm actually going to do it with both hands. All right, so the first thing I want to do is, she's really good at this posture, actually. We're going to spread her hands. And then you can see that it's pretty easy just to bring her right to her heels and then bring her down. I'm going to transfer my hands from here right back to the small of her back. 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then helping her up. Andy's not as proficient with this posture, so I'm going to guide him a little bit more than what I did with Dawn. All right, so the first thing, obviously I'm going to take his hips, and then Andy, look at the mat. Yeah, really arch your back. And I'm going to give him a little bit of support under his chest. So I'm actually pulling up, and then I'm going to step in a bit. And then Andy, reach your hands back, and then we're going all the way down to the mat. Okay, and then let's ground your hands. Yeah, ground your hands. And I'm going to keep his chest really high. Yeah, you don't have to overdo it here. So then I'm going to walk his hands. And a couple of the key elements here is that I don't want his elbow to turn way out to the side. I don't want him to do this. I actually want him to keep the elbows pointing towards the back, and I want him to walk towards the outside of his foot. So let's try this again. I see that you're slipping here. And then let's bring you in one more time, but I'm going to support his chest, and then just relax your arms here. There you go. Very nice. And then a little bit deeper on this side, and then elbows in. Don't let the elbows come out, and then head down. And then I'm just going to switch my hands back to his lower back. 2, 3, 4, and 5, and come on up, Andy. Nicely done. So over a period of a month or so, we can bring his hands in just a little bit further. But that was a great job. The next pose that we'll look at is Supta Vadrasana. With this adjustment, all I'm going to do is take my legs and put them right over her legs. But I'm also not going to press so hard down. And then she's going to reach back, grab your left one, and then grab your right one. And if they were unable to bind here, all you would do is maybe give them a false bind. So why don't you undo that real quick? So the false bind would be something, hold my hand. You could do something like this. Or the next thing that you could do is maybe entirely let go of the feet, and as you're pressing there with this, with her hands. So why don't you take your feet again, and then I'm going to support you back and keep your feet. I'm not going to press so hard down, and I'm going to take my hands, I'm going to press her a little bit towards each other, just slightly. All right, go on down, and we'll just do 5 breaths here. And you can see that I'm not straightening my legs. I'm just grounding her enough that she stays stable in this. 2, 3, 4, 5. She looks like she's losing her feet a little bit, so I'm just going to help her just a little bit. There's no sense in pulling too hard. Basically what you're trying to do is just have equal pressure in the legs and also equal pressure in the hands. The next posture that we'll focus on is Capada Shashasana. And basically all we're going to do with this one is help her stay grounded and secure as she does the posture. So as she brings it back, let's help her a little bit. You're going to bring the foot behind the head, and then we're going to bring it over to the opposite shoulder. And then the next thing I'm going to do is actually press down with it, and then I'm going to take her back and just help her straighten it a bit. And then we're actually going to fold forward with this. And I'm going to take my feet and I'm just going to squeeze her hips a bit. And you can see I'm switching my hands here. But I'm going to take my left hand and I'm going to support her knee. And do a couple breaths here. I also could switch my hands back and I could give her a little bit of support into the forward fold. And then inhale up, Dawn. And then let's get that out from under your head. There you go. Nice job. The next posture that we'll look at is Dewey Shirshasana. So now with Dewey Pada, we're going to help put both legs behind Dawn's head. And I'm going to do it by supporting her up top, but then I'm also going to use my feet or maybe even my knees to support her back. Okay? So Dawn, let's do the left foot first. Bring the left foot, bring it behind your head. And we're bringing the heel to the opposite shoulder. Good. And then I'm going to give downward pressure. All right? And now the next side. And I'm going to help her. And I'm going to transfer my knee. We're going to put the opposite leg behind. And then we're going to get her calves out of the way a bit. So sometimes the calves will get in the way. And I'm taking her feet. And I'm just going to transfer one of my feet onto the middle of her back. And just give her a slight pull forward as I'm really kind of like spreading her feet and then also maybe pressing down a bit. And again, I'm not going overboard here, just giving her slight pressure on both. This is a really difficult posture, so obviously use some discretion here. And then we're just going to release this. There you go. All of the poses that we've seen so far are all part of this series. At the end of each series, we start the finishing postures. The first one that we'll look at is Urdhva Dhanurasana. Okay, so this is Urdhva Dhanurasana. And so Andy is going to help us with this here. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is his feet. I want to take his feet and I want to bring the inside of his foot really to the outside of his sit bone. So he needs to be a little bit wider here. Yeah, go a little bit there. Maybe just a tad bit more. There you go. So the first thing with the feet, obviously it's the base. It's one of the most important elements of this. A lot of times like we're a little too skinny with it. All right, so I just want his feet to be a little bit wider. And now I'm going to switch around to his hands and his arms. And if he was really struggling with this posture with tight shoulders, I might actually bring fingers out more. Okay? And he would just do his back bend like that. But since he's a little bit more open, we're just going to take the fingers, and we're going to make sure that the index finger is as wide as the AC joint right there, the little bony protrusion on the top of the shoulder. And so let's go a little bit wider. And the first thing I want him to do is actually just come to the top of the head. So you're going to lift the head and the hips, and he's just going to pause here. Two things that we're going to do. We're going to walk his hands in, just to maybe an inch or so, and then we're going to bring his elbows in. But when we bring his elbows in, the next thing that we need to do is really activate the side body here, and we're going to bring his humerus bone back into his shoulders. Yeah, so we're really activating, really deepening the armpit. And I'm not going to let his elbows come out to the side. I'm actually going to support him right here. So inhale, come up, and just do the best you can. Very good. And deep breaths here. And I'm just giving him a little bit of pressure this way on his elbows. And then look down in between your hands, and then just breathe. Yeah, feel your feet. And I might be able to help him deepen it a little bit if I grab like right behind his chest and just give him a little bit towards me. And then let's come down to the top of your head. Yeah, and then tuck your chin and come all the way down. So that's a little bit of strategy to help someone really find their side body, help them open up their shoulders, and get them into Urdhva Dhanurasana. The next pose that we'll focus on are drop backs. We're also going to show Dawn in Urdhva Dhanurasana. The adjustment will be a little bit different. Dawn's a little bit more flexible. So Dawn, bring your hands back and then just widen your feet just a bit. There you go. And so our hands are back here, and then I'm just going to tighten them up. So we want that index finger as wide as that AC joint, and then come to the top of the head and lift the hips. And for Dawn, we're actually going to walk her hands in maybe 3 inches or so on each side. And then the elbows are coming in just like Andy. But here's the difference. I'm going to give her a little bit more in her hands. Don't come up yet. And then I'm going to give her a little bit more in her hands. And I'm going to activate her side body. And then straighten your arms, Dawn. So you can see that really activated that. Good. And that helped her deepen her arch a bit. 3, 4, and 5. Come on down. Top of the head. And let's walk your hands out a little bit and then tuck your chin. So the next one we'll look at is drop backs. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stagger my stance, and then I'm also going to bend my knees. I think that's pretty important because you can get hurt when you're giving adjustments. So by bending your knees, keep you a little bit more active in your legs. First thing we're going to do is support her lower back, and then I'm actually going to spread my hands. So I'm going to help her keep out of the lower back as best we can. All right, so inhale up and look at the mat, arch your back, and I'm just going to keep my hands spread here. Elbows are in for me, and then reaching back all the way to the floor. Good. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer my weight, and I'm going to bring her back up. Good. And so all I did was really maintain like this amount of space in her lower back so that there wasn't any crunching there. Yep. The next thing, I'm going to show like a different variation of it. The next thing I can show you with drop backs is that I can actually go even higher. I can go up into her chest. And so my hands are actually going to come all the way up towards like the middle of her back. And then her hips are where my elbows are going to go. All right, so reach back and see the mat. And I'm going to keep her chest really high. So you can see how I'm creating space there, and then reach your hands back and then go all the way down. Very good. And then let's inhale all the way back up. So the whole time I was not only supporting it like this, I was also kind of squeezing with my hands. So we're also going to show this adjustment with Andy. So different body types give a little bit different of adjustments. So with Andy, I'm going to actually widen my stance a bit. All right, I'm going to support his lower back just like how I did with Dawn. And so inhale up. Yeah, keep your chest high. And then I'm going to keep his center of gravity, which is right in front of the sacrum right here. I'm going to keep it coming forward. And then I'm going to bend my knees a bit. And then Andy, I just want you to reach back. I still have the small of his back or his lower back. And then I just want you to walk in a bit, Andy. There you go. And the whole time, I'm just kind of giving him the pressure forward and then also down a bit to keep into his legs. And then let's rock up. Inhale up. Very nice. So with that adjustment, we're basically trying to bring him forward a bit and then also keep him grounded. The last pose that we'll adjust is Shirshasana. So Dawn's going to help us with Shirshasana today. So the first thing I want to talk about is how we place our hands on the mat. One of the most important things is that our palms are not together. They're actually open. And then the elbows are shoulder width apart. And we're going to roll the hands open so that we can palm the head. So let's do this, Dawn. So the thumbs are spread. And instead of putting the middle of the head on the mat, we're actually going to go maybe 1 inch in front of it. All right? So go ahead and put that spot right there in front of the pinky. And then the thumbs are going to latch around. And we're really just trying to activate the side body here so you can take the arms and bring them back. Yeah, and then keep those elbows that wide. And then go ahead and straighten your legs and come into downward dog legs. And then just walk in just a little bit more. And you can bend the knees. And we're just helping her activate her rib cage so that her core is activated. And then inhale all the way up. And I can just support her by putting my hand on her lower back. And then I'm just going to help her give a little bit of a cue to help her really use the side body, so shoulder blades around the back so that we really get this activation. So if you can guide someone with an adjustment just to get into this, it'll be much easier for them to do headstand. I hope this video not only inspires you, but informs your practice. Thanks for joining me today.